Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the live stream, the Double A Team podcast live stream. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. With me, as always, is my co host and a good friend of ours from YouTube's The Windy City production, Rishab Skiri, and also a recent addition to our live stream discussing about the Bears. It is Phillips Charles VanDerHeyden IV. Guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. We're going to try and keep it short, obviously, because it's Sunday and it's also, football will be played a little bit later on. But guys, the Bears head coaching search continues. But obviously, a big development happened yesterday because the Bears, obviously the Lions, were beaten by the Washington Commanders 45-28 in a 45-31, in an absolute track meet. And guys, I want you to give us your honest opinion on yesterday's game, and how shocking was it to, see the Lions get completely boat raced by an upstart Washington Commanders team.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I really thought the Lions were gonna win this. They seemed like such a dominant team in the regular season. They had the most blowouts in the NFL. Like, they were beating teams by 20, 30 plus points. So I thought it just made too much sense for the Lions to at least go to the NFC Championship game. I thought they might lose there, but I really did not see this coming. Where they got boat raced at home. In a game that honestly wasn't even close. Like, I know it was a 3-point game in the third quarter, but they blew it open at the end. Jared Goff played horrible. I mean, 4 turnovers, 5 turnovers overall for the Lions. So, yeah, I think they probably got a little too overconfident, honestly, entering this game, and probably thought the Commanders weren't anything to be scared about because they were, from the NFC East and had a rookie quarterback. But yeah, I mean, as a Bears fan, obviously, I was pretty happy to see what happened. But at the same time, the narratives now about Jaden Daniels and how some people saying the Bears should have taken Jaden over Caleb is going to continue to grow after a win like that. So that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Like, I'm just happy none of the NFC North is going to be in the playoffs anymore, and we don't have to worry about them winning a Super Bowl.
Phil, your honest opinion about yesterday's Lions loss, and how did it make you feel watching the game as a Bears fan?
Watching the game, I would say that most of the time, at least for most of the game, I was pretty psyched about Ben Johnson. He was dialing up those touchdowns like it was no big deal. If Detroit could have gotten a stop or two, it felt like they were going to run away with it because Gibbs was doing everything. But that he can leave that toss play though, to Jameson Williams with the pass. You can leave that one back in Detroit. I was surprised though. I will say I was very surprised. I thought Washington was good. I didn't think they were good enough to beat Detroit. It is crazy that after the history-making season that the NFC North had, that they're all eliminated. Definitely surprised, shocked, but happy that we can start getting Ben Johnson in the building because, let's be honest, it's about that time.
Yeah, as Celeste, thanks for joining us once again. Obviously, probably the Lions is probably the most of the majority of the sentiments of the Bears fans right now. Emiliano obviously told us time to get Ben Johnson in the building and make him the next head coach. Nicholas said Goff costed them the game. There's no question about that.
Yep.
Goff was terrible. He was sacked near the red zone that turned it into a strip sack, a fumble that Washington recovered and completely changed the kind of the complexion of the game because the Lions were leading 7-3, I believe, at that time when the strip sack and a fumble happened. So, this is going to be very interesting, now that the Bears are have a chance to land Ben Johnson, and yesterday's loss gives them a clear pathway to go get Ben Johnson. It comes as no surprise that the Bears at that point, before the game, hasn't met the Rooney Rule quota, and then today they're actually interviewing former NFL running back and Eddie George, who's coaching, I don't know, Tennessee State or wherever it is, who's been probably like one of the traditional HBCUs out there. And, it's going to be very interesting. This is an in-house interview. And now for those who are not really familiar with the process, the Rooney Rule states that you have to interview 2 minority candidates in-house. So that means you have to bring in 2 minority candidates to Halas Hall for an actual interview. The Bears have already done that with Ron Rivera, and now they're going to meet that quote with Eddie George today, which is happening as we speak right now. So the Bears will meet that quota. And for those who are not familiar, obviously New England a week or so ago already interviewed 2 minority candidates, Pep Hamilton and Byron Leftwich, both on the same day to kind of skirt the rule, which kind of draw an intense criticism from many people. I know Aaron Glenn said, you know what, fuck you, and then didn't do the interview when he was approached about that, and rightfully so. And then next day, if you remember, after meeting the Rooney Rule requirement, the Patriots eventually ended up hiring the guy that they were always going to hire, and Mike Vrabel. And so, I know, Rishab, you said something about the Rooney Rule, and can you tell us what you said and what do you feel about the the rule itself right now?
Oh yeah, I don't really think it's doing much good, if I'm being honest. Just like this, even the Chicago Bears, who are kind of like a forward-thinking organization, they're basically bringing Eddie George to do a fake interview to meet the quota, right? That's what it is. Sorry to be blunt, but that's 100% what it is. There's 0% chance Eddie George is getting this head coaching job, and this only came out right after the Lions loss, and it came out via Ryan Pohl's right-hand media member,
Jay
Glazer. Yeah, he's really close with Glazer, and obviously he was the one to break the news immediately because Pohl's probably texted him up, and he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna interview him tomorrow, so we can be Rooney Rule compliant." So I think the NFL probably has to rethink that rule, if I'm being honest. I know maybe it's helped some people get jobs, but I don't think, if I'm a minority, I won't feel good about going into a fake interview where I don't have a chance to actually get the job. So yeah, that's kind of shitty for those people. But yeah, I guess you got to do what you got to do. It seems like Ben Johnson is the number 1 candidate for the Bears, at least according to some people. They seem really enamored with Ben Johnson, and they're going to try to convince him to come to Chicago. And to do that, they had to do these fake interviews, I guess. But this also clears the way now for them to hire him pretty fast. They can bring him in on the 20th, I believe, of January. So tomorrow, yeah, they can interview him tomorrow in person. But I'm sure he's going to want to meet with the Raiders, with the other Jaguars as well. So we'll see if the Bears can bring him in and just hire him immediately. I don't think that's going to happen. We're probably going to have to wait a few more days after to see what his final decision is going to be. But yeah, now the Bears can hire him if they want.
Yeah, Phil. Obviously, the Bears are probably close to making their decision right now. So, where are you right now in terms of the confidence in this the search to finally come to an end, and maybe the Bears are going to name their head coach as soon as maybe this upcoming week?
This is actually probably the best I've felt about a head coach search so far. It actually feels like we're targeting the top candidates. We're not overthinking it. I know that we're getting a lot of people in the door, and I know a lot of people have had a problem with how many interviews that we've had, but I don't think you can ever get too much information. I think a lot of those, if anything, you're receiving opinions from these candidates about what they think about your roster and what they would do with it. So I think if nothing else, it's good information to have. And I think that there's, for all those candidates that were interviewed, there's probably, a small handful that had a good chance. I think it's pretty clear with the way that they scheduled the Eddie George interview that they are very, very serious about Ben Johnson, because the timing of it was impossible to ignore. However, to also go to some of these comments that are being left, maybe, we have to get, is Cliff Kingsbury, do you make the hire without getting him in the door, and I guess making sure that he's not somebody that you want to hire, because his game plan was impressive yesterday. I mean, personally, I think if you can get Ben Johnson, I think you got to lock it up. Right. But and I think this process, it'll be better if it's ended sooner rather than later. But it'll be interesting to see how the Bears approach this over the next week, for sure.
Right. Well, yesterday's game really does not knock how do I say Ben Johnson's stock down significantly at all. I mean, they still scored 31 points with the way they're operating, and again, with the Lions loss, I wouldn't put it on DC Aaron Glenn too much either. I know probably the Lions fans probably feel different about that, even with all the injuries that they have had to deal with throughout the season. So, I would still give Ben Johnson that he is my number one without question. As for Cliff, I think Cliff's career in both college and the pros are a little bit leave a lot to be desired. Do you feel that way, Rishab, about Cliff, despite his success with Jaden Daniels in his rookie season?
I'm not sure. Before I felt that way before this season, but this season has kind of made me change my opinion on Cliff. Like, just like Phil said, I think maybe the Bears should interview him and make sure he's not the best option. Maybe he could be, right, but he has already failed as head coach before, so that's a knock against him. But sometimes it takes these coaches time to learn, and Cliff was young back then. He probably learned a lot over the past couple of years, and his game plan for Jaden Daniels was fantastic this year. Like, I know people call Jaden like a one-read quarterback, but it's good that his first read is always open. Like, that's how brilliant of a play caller Cliff Kingsbury is, at least this year. So I think he definitely deserves his flowers this year. And in terms of being a head coach, though, it is different. Like, all coordinators are not good head coaches, but that's also a question you could ask out of Ben Johnson. Like, we're not totally sure if Ben Johnson is guaranteed to be a good head coach. He's a good play caller, but it's to be determined if he's going to be a good head coach. And Cliff has been a head coach in the past. He's won some games. He's went to the playoffs. But, yeah, the past couple seasons, they weren't really good under Cliff Kingsbury, and that kind of all fell apart. But, yeah, like Phil's father was saying, couldn't handle Johnny football. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Like, maybe he's only a good OC, but
right. Yeah, he barely won with Patrick Mahomes as well, at Texas Tech too. So
yeah. Oh, my dad, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight as well. With Johnson, Nicholas raises a good point there. Goff is holding the Lions back. There's a reason McVay got rid of Goff, and I think maybe what we saw yesterday, probably maybe Goff got exposed a little bit. There's probably there's no question about that, and the Raiders, they're still in the hunt. Tom Brady was calling the game yesterday, and people are up in arms about, Tom calling the game and also owning the Raiders stake at 5% ownership, and, still be able to have access and, talks and everything. And Phil, let me ask you about Tom Brady's so-called involvement. Do you find that concerning, or do you feel like that's not much of anything in your opinion?
I find it extremely concerning. Maybe not so much as to is he going to take Ben Johnson away from us, but as to Roger Goodell, do you have a set? Do you run this league? Because last time I checked, you were supposed to be the commissioner, and there was supposed to be rules about owners and what they were supposed to be allowed to do. And Tom Brady just does whatever he wants, clearly. I guess I don't know what kind of dirt Tom Brady has on Roger Goodell, but he was on the field yesterday prior to the game. So that whole bullshit about, who cares? He's just announcing he's not going to be talking to Ben Johnson. Yeah, whatever, man. I'm not buying any of that. I think it is a problem. And I think that the NFL needs to address it because I'm sorry, Tom Brady isn't special. He's a great football player, but he should have to follow the rules like everybody else.
Do you agree with that, Rishab?
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
This is a situation which we've never seen before, honestly.
Right.
Honestly, nobody of Tom Brady's stature really has, been an owner like that, I feel like, or at least in terms of being a top player. And he has a lot of influence on the Raiders coaching decision. Like according to the Raiders, reporters or whatever, he's the one kind of leading the whole head coaching search. So the fact that the main guy in charge leading the coaching search has extra access to this head coaching candidate, which other teams don't, that's obviously really unfair. And I know Raiders fans don't care because it's benefiting them, but everybody else in the league should care. And, if Roger Goodell, cared about the rules, he would do something about this and prevent Tom Brady from even owning the Raiders, or at least make him choose between ownership or being a commentator. I mean, originally that's what they said was going to happen. They said that if Tom Brady did want to be a commentator, he was going to have to abide by different rules than the rest of the commentators. He wouldn't be allowed to meet with the coaching staffs and stuff like that. But it seems like those rules have been forgotten. He's still meeting with them on the field. So I don't know what even happened with that. But, regardless, it's not a good look for the NFL to allow, such a high statured individual like Tom Brady extra access to basically, sway the coaching search his way. Now, I don't think he's going to if dad convinces him to go to Las Vegas over the Chicago Bears, then the Bears have bigger problems because we have much more in Chicago to be excited about than the Raiders do. So, it shouldn't matter anyways, but it still sucks that, he's getting a little bit extra access.
Tom Brady is a known rule breaker. we all know the whole thing with the what is that? With
he admitted the deflated balls, right? At his
deflate gate, the Belichick skirting rules on the videos and everything, right? I think that was a long time ago. It is a really, really disturbing, and the NFL turning a blind eye on issues like this certainly does not help. With this perception that, they're giving Tom Brady a leeway or turn a blind eye because, it is Tom Brady and, you don't want to get on the wrong side of him or whatever. But, the rules. Yeah, exactly. The rules are rules. The rules are in place. So, I hope that the NFL will eventually come to their senses and, just giving Tom Brady turning a blind eye on everything he says and does not help its perception, because, I understand, the Raiders are an organization that's been in a flux, much like the Bears are, unfortunately. And, unlike the Bears, you have Tom Brady, that gives them a bit of a, I don't want to say street cred per se, but it does give them an advantage, fair or not. So, we'll see what happens. I know the Raiders are interviewing a Washington assistant GM that was put in place today. That's always been the case, unfortunately, because I know that there have been long rumors that Ben Johnson wants to work with a certain type of people or GMs. Now, I know people are going to go up in arms if we miss out on, Ben Johnson because we didn't fire Ryan Poles and whatnot. But, and I think at the end of the day, it's probably going to come down to money. And, probably he's said to be looking at maybe 10 years, maybe, more than 150 million, 15 million. That puts him in a Sean McVay kind of range. I know we're hearing rumors that, that's not going to be an issue for the Bears this time around. But do you feel like $15 million is too much for a first-time coach for a guy like Ben Johnson, Phil?
Not at all. Now, 10 years would throw me. I'd be shocked if the Bears actually.
I see this as a 10-year because remember when Al Davis was still alive before, they gave 10-year $100 million to John Gruden, and we all know how that ended up. So.
Yes. Yeah, I know there's a little precedent there. It would be shocking for the Bears at least to drop a 10-year contract on us, but I don't think that $15 million per season is too much for Ben Johnson. It's been pretty clear that he's been the top coaching candidate. He was the top coaching candidate last year, arguably, maybe other than Jim Harbaugh. So I that's the going rate when you want to get the top coaching candidate on the cycle. And the Lions have a ton of success, a lot of proven. He's been the play caller there for years, and they've just been an offensive juggernaut. So to me, when you want the top guy on the market, that's what you got to pay. And I think that's what the Bears did when they leaked that Tomlin news yesterday, that they tried to trade for Tomlin. Well, Tomlin's a top 5 highest paid coach. So what they said basically was, yeah, we tried to trade for Tomlin, and you see what his salary is? Ben, name your price.
That's true. Rishab, your thoughts on the asking price for a guy like Ben Johnson?
Yeah, I think the per year the Bears are willing to pay, like just like Phil said, like they're willing to pay $16 million for Mike Tomlin, so they should be willing to pay $60 million for Ben Johnson too. The length kind of worries me though. Like if he actually wants 10 years, I don't think the Bears are going to offer him that. And like the Raiders, maybe they could. Somebody brought up a comment, Zach, that Raiders offers 6 years, $90 million. If it's that, then I think the Bears could match that, because that's only an extra year than what they usually do. They usually do 5 years, so one extra year would not be as big of a deal. But if the Raiders offer 10 years, like $150 million, I don't think the Bears are going to do that. And I don't even know if they should at that point. Like, even though I really want Ben Johnson, he's still unproven at the end of the day. But it's also the McCaskey's money. Like, it's not cap space going into this. Like, they can eat the money easily and be totally fine. It's just like their money being lost. But obviously that gives you less cash to spend on other coaches and other things if Ben Johnson failed. So yeah, I mean, hopefully money's not an issue. We've seen other guys on Bears Twitter, I think who was it, Bill Zimmerman, or like somebody brought up the fact that like money is not going to be an issue for the Bears coaching search this year. Like McCaskey has given Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren like as much money as they need to hire the right staff this year. So I don't believe money is going to be an issue unless it's the length of the contract. That might be an issue.
Right. Now, somebody was asking us about who is our number 2 touchdown Bears here. Who is your guys' number 2 behind Johnson? For me, it's clearly, for me, Todd Monken, who interviewed with the Bears, I believe, Friday. Monken has also interviewed with, I believe, Jacksonville's job. But guys, who is your clear number 2? Let's start with you, Rishab.
I agree with Todd Monken. I think it's close between him and Mike McCarthy, but Mike McCarthy, he has more proven success. He probably has a better floor, higher floor for sure. But I just think that he's been in the league for so long. Maybe it's getting a little bit stale now. Like, he's already had some success in the past and like not that much playoff success recently. Where Todd Monken, he's an unknown for sure, but maybe the ceiling with him could be higher. And the Bears should be aiming for Super Bowl level head coaches. And obviously Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl in the past. Like, I'm not trying to say he could not go back to Super Bowl, but recently, like, playoff success has not been good at all. Like, he's had some pretty talented teams in Dallas, done nothing with them in the playoffs. So, Monken has done really good with Lamar Jackson. He's had basically 2 MVP level seasons, with Lamar under his leadership. The Ravens' run game is super good. Their offensive line, doing pretty solid too under his play calling. So I think he's earned the right to be a head coach this year. He did a lot of good work at Georgia, won national championships, and he's a really good like speaker too. Like, if you guys have seen his mic'd ups, like, he's yelling at players. Like, he'll definitely hold guys accountable for sure, unlike a Matt Eberflus. And I'm not sure if George McCaskey would be okay with him, yelling that much, like swearing that much, but
who cares about that?
George is gonna have to suck it up. Like, if he wants a good head coach, like, all these guys are going to be yelling and swearing probably. So I'd be a big fan of Todd Monken. But if not, then Mike McCarthy, I'd still be okay with, because I feel like with Mike McCarthy, you're at least guaranteed a playoff berth most years, and that's better than what the Bears have had for majority of my life. But I just will not be as excited as Ben Johnson, obviously.
No, your dad says McCarthy goes to New Orleans for the restaurants. But McCarthy obviously has ties with New Orleans. He was an OC there back in the late 90s. there too. So he will likely interview. So it will be very interesting. McCarthy has kind of risen, at the the top of the list of coaching candidates for the Bears, and I know a lot of people look at him as like a high floor, low ceiling type of a candidate, but people call him the offensive Mike Tomlin, et cetera, et cetera. Phil, where are you on McCarthy as a candidate, and did you like it, or you're just kind of like accepting the fact that this is kind of like the most Bears hire perhaps they can make or something?
It's so funny. Like, if you would have asked me this prior to the end of the season, I would have maybe thrown up like instantly. I hate it's hard to enjoy the idea of Mike McCarthy. I mean, I just hate his face. Ever since he was roaming Lambeau Field, he's just kicking our ass. He's got that look on his face, and you're like, dude, you're not even doing anything. It's Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'll say this: I've come around a little bit, because at the end of the day, this man is 60 games over 500 in the regular season, and it's hard to sneeze at that. Like, oh, whatever. Like, we don't really have that luxury, but and also, I mean, the idea of Mike McCarthy becoming the first head coach in NFL history to win 2 Super Bowls for 2 different franchises and then beat the Packers and the Bears would actually be peak narrative in the NFL. But that all being said, as far as my second choice, I'm not going to go with McCarthy. I like Todd Monken. I also like someone here mentioned Marcus Freeman. I don't think that that's a possibility, but if it was, I think that would be very, very interesting. I like his youth. I like how he connects to the players, and I think he's done a great job in Notre Dame. I just don't think that there's any chance that he's leaving Notre Dame at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, he did mention he's flattered with the interest from the NFL, but it seems like though the Bears are the only ones seems to have put in an interview, and I do think that regardless of the outcome of tomorrow night's championship game, I think Freeman is staying put. I think he already extended a contract. I don't think there is no point in trying to use the Bears as a leverage anymore. Steve Sarkisian actually, had some sort of a interest rumors that the Cowboys are interested in hiring him, and then ended up getting a brand new 7-year contract a couple of days ago. But I don't think Freeman is in that kind of game per se. I think Freeman, maybe in a couple of years, he would be a viable candidate, especially if Notre Dame wins tomorrow or even gets back into another, college football championship. So, it's an interesting dynamic, for Freeman. But again, I don't think Freeman, unlike some guys here like Zach, who wants Freeman to be interviewed or at least get a shot, probably won't be available. So there was an article that came out by Courtney Cronin, who covered the Bears for the ESPN, about the coaching search and then how it's being dominated by certain agents per se. And one of the big names that I think we may have discussed in our discussion, Rishab, in the past, is that former Bear Trace Armstrong. Is obviously the head coach guru, or represents many assistant coaches, et cetera. And unfortunately, the Bears were used as an example in that article. Phil, I'm sure you probably saw that snippets of the article that was written by Courtney Cronin and Kaylin Kaler this week. Obviously, we know the backstory. Phil, let's start with you. Ted Phillips was a long time, a confidant for the Bears under, the McCaskey family. Started as an accountant, moved into the team president role, and for almost 20 years, the Bears barely had any success there, except for 2005 and 6 when they, actually, won back-to-back division titles and went to the Super Bowl, lucked into hiring Lovie Smith, as a head coach there. Do you feel confident that, at least for me, I know a lot of people are, always going to give Kevin Warren grieves about his involvement in the role and all that kind of stuff. But do you feel confident that at least the Bears are kind of skirting away from Trace Armstrong candidates, except for, Joe Brady, the OC for Buffalo, that maybe they're kind of, doing their due diligence and perhaps that they're going to try and, avoid the Trace Armstrong candidates because of the recent article that came out? Or do you feel like, it really doesn't matter because you have to hire the right people, and certainly the Bears just don't have the know-how or the whereabouts to do that?
I think it's a tough act. I think it's very dangerous though when an agent has this much seemingly this much power over a football team.
Right.
The Trace Armstrong connection with Joe Brady does freak me the fuck out. I don't like it.
He's a good OC. There's no doubt about that.
Yes, good OC. At the same time, though, with the Joe Brady, for playing devil's advocate, okay, he's got Josh Allen. I mean, Brian Dable. Everyone's out on Brian Dable right now, right? Well, when Brian Dable was the Buffalo offensive coordinator, he looked damn good. He was doing great with Josh Allen, and now he's in New York, and everyone's out on him because of everything that's going on there. But I think you have to be careful. I mean, when you're hiring an offensive coordinator from a team that has an elite quarterback, because an elite quarterback can make a lot of people look good.
Exactly.
Let's forget about Luke Getsy, okay? Right. I mean, we just went through that with him and Aaron Rodgers. We're so happy to have a guy from Green Bay, but he didn't call plays, and he had Aaron Rodgers, and it became clear that he was in over his head. So the Trace Armstrong thing does bother me. I think you still have to give Joe Brady a good chance. You have to interview him. You have to do the whole thing, do it the right way. But I would still lean away from him at this time.
Rishab, do you think that the Bears are kind of wise to skirt away from, the Trace Armstrong connection because of the bad hirings that has led to, the history of the bad hirings that came through Armstrong's representation per se? Or you feel like that's that doesn't bother you at all as long as you hire the right candidates, as long as and it's done thoroughly, like the Bears are doing right?
I mean, I don't care as long as they hire the right candidate. Like, I don't care who your agent is, obviously, but my only worry is they're bringing in bad candidates only because the agent wants them to get hired somewhere. And
right.
They know they can trick the Bears. Like, Trace Armstrong probably knows he can trick the Bears into hiring any of his candidates because they're so, looped in by him at this point. And I thought they interviewed him to be president even a few years ago. Like, maybe I'm wrong about that, but like he could have been the Bears president even. Like, that's how much sway he has on the Bears organization and George McCaskey. So I think hiring Kevin Warren, though, as much as Bears fans criticize him, I think that's helping out with that because at least Kevin Warren knows other people around the NFL. He has his own business connections. So I think Kevin Warren is actually helping us in going after other guys that are rep by other agents, even with his own flaws, So, I try to stay away from a Trace Armstrong client at this point just because it's not worked out in the past. But you never know. Like, I'm a bigger fan of Joe Brady than maybe Phil is because I still feel like he's done a lot of good things with Josh Allen. Like, even with having such limited weapons, Josh Allen is having one of his best seasons. And talking about good quarterbacks, I mean, every good OC kind of needs a good quarterback to be successful long term. Like even Todd Monken, I'm a big Todd Monken fan. Like, he has Lamar Jackson. Like, he's already a really good quarterback. The only coordinator that's succeeding without a good quarterback is Ben Johnson. Like, Jared Goff, I don't think is a good quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback, but he's still having such tremendous success. So that's why Ben Johnson should be the number one by far on the Bears coaching hire. Like, it should not even be close. But yeah, as for number two, all these other guys are kind of similar in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm sharing an article here written by Courtney, using the Bears as an example, titled "How Agents Impact Coaching Searches and Why the NFL Cares." And this was something that we discussed earlier with the sham process of skirting the Rooney Rule per se. There, the Bears obviously were used as an example, and I know a lot of the Bears fans are bemoaning just how bad the Bears are in terms of letting. Again, here they're using, the example of, Trace Armstrong being using the Bears per se here, Matt Nagy and Eberflus, 3 fired offensive coordinators, Helfrich, Getze, and Waldron, and then the current GM Ryan Poles there. So, and the comments here is quite damning. I've never seen one agent have so much influence on one team, had so little success, but they keep going back and taking his guys, said one coaching agent who requested anonymity, to speak freely on the topic. We're kind of shaking our heads like, have they not figured this out yet? I think it says here that though Armstrong is only one of 6 coaching agents who represents more than head coach, coordinators, and GMs for the same club into the 2013 season. The other guys, of course, Frank Bauer, never heard of him, Richmond Flowers, Bob Lamont, Jimmy Sexton, and Rick Smith. Now, I am kind of familiar with the name Jimmy Sexton because obviously that's a big name, agent who represents mostly in the college football scene. Richard Flowers is Richmond Flowers, is somebody that has a connection with Caleb, and I think the quarterback school that he went to back when he was still in high school. That I don't know the name of the QB training school that was head up by somebody that is connected to Richard Flowers, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that, and then recently the Ben Johnson's name popped up, I think, a day or two ago, because he is now represented by Rick Smith. Rick Smith, who is the Priority First, I believe, is the name of the agency, which happens to be in Chicago, believe it or not. And and that kind of drew some significant interest from the Bears fans because he is represented by an agent who is based out of Chicago, and that the connection for Ben Johnson to the Bears is becoming more and more apparent. Do you buy that argument, Rishab, or you feel that's that's pretty much nothing burger that we're trying to make out of this?
I think it matters somewhat. I mean, it does matter. Location does matter somewhat, right? Like if you're located in a place close by to Hallis Hall, maybe it's easier to have a connection there. Right now it seems like the Bears are so looped in by Trace Armstrong, but if they want to kind of go towards a new agent, Rick Smith could be a fantastic option. It seems like he's a Bears fan too. I mean, if you look at his old tweets from 2013, 2012, I was going through his old tweets for no reason at all, and like I found him tweeting about the Blackhawks, like them winning the Stanley Cup. He went to U of I, Champaign, and he also went to Northwestern for grad school. So he's went to both of the biggest Illinois schools, colleges. Like he's definitely a Chicago, local Chicago fan. And maybe there's a little bit extra incentive there to, restore glory to your hometown team. Like, I mean, maybe I'm just making that up. Like, I'm not sure if he's actually a Bears fan or not, but I feel like at least somewhat it does matter that, he is located in Chicago. And Ben Johnson signed with this guy just 4 months ago, I believe. It wasn't recent, like it wasn't like last week, like some people were thinking, but it was 4 months ago, which is still like that's kind of when he probably started his coaching prep, head coaching interview prep, 4 months ago, right? So maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing, but I still think it's pretty cool that at least the guy he's repped with, he is a Chicago guy and maybe a Chicago sports fan too.
Phil, do you when you saw that connection, did that kind of move your needle?
I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, I'm all about doing any kind of mental gymnastics I can to make myself feel better about this Ben Johnson to the Bears, because I feel like that's the one game-changing head coaching hire that we can make. So I do love that he seemingly has some sort of connection to Chicago. I appreciate Rishab's investigative work there to help me feel motivated, or at least confident. That's the right word. Confident that Ben Johnson will be coming to Chicago. I think it's something. I don't think it's nothing. I'll put it that way.
Now, for anybody who's interested, Mike McCarthy recently switched agent himself too. This is going to be very interesting. I think he switched from, I forgot who his agent was before. And then he recently switched to Donnie, who is known for representing Tom Brady, all his throughout his career. I'm not sure if he's still involved with the, Tom Brady's, representation when it comes to, getting him a Fox deal and all that kind of stuff. But, this is going to be very interesting. I think, the article, it says here, the league data reveals that minority candidates in particular are represented in the landscape where most influential coaching agents predominantly represent white clients. As another hiring season continues, the league office is looking at McCaskey's Bears and the NFL's other remaining coaches and GM suitors with a particular scrutiny. Everybody is abundantly aware of it, a league source has said. So, I understand it's easy to use the Bears as a, joke because, there are joke without, let's be honest here. But, I do hope that, at least what the Bears are doing, whether the fans don't like it or not, I think that, I give them, somewhat of a credit for, doing it outside the box and interviewing so many different, candidates, because there is a certain lag between, the time that you can interview Ben Johnson, and, teams that are in the playoffs before, obviously yesterday's game, they can only do it virtually. You cannot bring them in, unfortunately, in person because you want to focus on the game at hand there. So, at least I give, Bears, Nicholas said, Kevin has no connections to Trace is the only good thing that's going for him. And I understand, people just want him to focus on the, the stadium and all that stuff. And I think that once this is done, I think that will happen due in time there. But, for me, at least Warren's, past experience as an executive, both NFL and college, at least give him some strong connections and, the due diligence that was somewhat missing in the last coaching search, where they had, like a 3 list that was compiled by Bill Poley and, Matt Eberflus, Mike Caldwell, and Dan Quinn there. So at least I give them a credit for doing a thorough due diligence. And I think when it's all said and done, this week, I think it's finally when the Bears are going to finally, get their, coach named. And, Zach said here, McCaskey's a tier on his own, way down the bottom, the way he operates. Ownership has no plan. They hope to strike lightning in a bottle. And I do agree with that. It's unfortunate, but, at least George, isn't, like sticking his head into this business, which I think is a good thing because he knows it. Certainly what he said at the end of the year press conference several weeks ago raises eyebrows and just kind of makes a lot of people angry about, what happened with the Lions game where people screamed, sell the team. That kind of bothered him more so than anything else, was kind of a, an eye opener per se. But, I do believe that, Bears will hire the guy, and it's always going to be first and foremost, Caleb has to be the one that the focal point. And I understand that might be the only selling point for the Bears at this point. The Raiders, sure, I get it. They're desperate. They can throw the money, and then the Bears could, the Raiders could pair him with a GM that he has had familiarity in the past. And then, they can at least maybe, 2025 is obviously a rebuilding year with no quarterback. And, this year's quarterback class of in the draft isn't as good as last year at all. But, we just have to probably sit and wait at this point pretty much, for all of us just to kind of keep our fingers crossed that, Ben Johnson, hopefully will get hired. And, if Ben Johnson decides to, take his act elsewhere, Las Vegas or even, God forbid, Jacksonville, then, I mean, maybe, we shouldn't be going up in arms about, Ben choosing to go elsewhere because he obviously probably was offered more money, per se. Do you feel like if Ben Johnson goes elsewhere outside of Chicago, does your opinion on Ben kind of changes a little bit because he kind of skirts away from the challenges, or do you feel like that's more of an indictment on the Bears per se, Phil?
Man, you lined that one up perfect, Steven. I don't know if you were in my head, but here's my thing. If he's going to pick the Raiders over the Bears in these situations, then Ben Johnson isn't who I think he is. That's I mean, and I think Danny Parkins said it too. Everything that we've heard about Ben Johnson is that he cares about his opportunity because he wants to win. He cares about his legacy. He wants to build something lasting. Okay, what in the world would the Raiders offer him that would satisfy these things, apparently? How do you turn down jobs for Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, but then you go coach Aiden O'Connell? I just don't think that there's, if a team like Pittsburgh or another franchise was vying for his services right now, I would feel a lot more nervous. But if we're talking Jacksonville, Las Vegas, and Chicago, for a guy that's supposed to care about his legacy and winning, it shouldn't even be a hard process for Ben Johnson. We should be clearing above everybody else. And if he's going to pick one of those other teams, then I just don't think that he's the same guy that I thought he was.
Rishab, do you feel that way?
Yeah, Phil said it best. There's not much to add. I mean, yeah, I don't understand what he could possibly see from the Raiders organization. Even from an ownership standpoint, Tom Brady owns 5% of the team. Mark Davis is still the owner, 95% owner. He's not a good owner. He doesn't have any idea what he's doing. And even Tom Brady, there's nothing to believe. He's done nothing to make us believe he's going to be a good owner. Being a good player does not mean you're a good owner, as we saw with Michael Jordan and the Hornets. It doesn't matter, So
right.
I just don't see what possibly he could see there. Brock Bowers is the only thing where maybe he's I can turn Brock Bowers into Travis Kelce. That could be exciting, but with what quarterback? There's no quarterback in the NFL draft they could get that I feel like would be good immediately. Even next year, if Ben Johnson is good, he's going to win more games than expected with the Raiders and not be in position to draft a top quarterback next year. He's never going to get a top quarterback ever with the Raiders, where with the Chicago Bears, he has a top quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. He doesn't have to worry about quarterback, presumably, if Caleb is the guy, for a long, long time. I just don't understand why this would possibly even be an argument. The only reason why it's an argument is because of money, probably, and because, the Bears ownership obviously is not good. And maybe because, reportedly he wants to work with Ryan Poles, but obviously working with this brand new, hand-picked GM could be a little bit more intriguing. But I don't understand from a quarterback and roster standpoint why he would possibly choose the Raiders. I mean, in that case, the Jaguars would make more sense because at least the Jaguars have Trevor Lawrence, and he was a former number 1 overall pick. He's done some good things in the past, but the Jaguars have Trent Baalke, and everybody hates Trent Baalke apparently. So that's why we don't have to worry about them as a potential destination.
By the way, the Raiders have also met the Rooney Rule. I know somebody was asking the question earlier in the comment section. Sorry for that. They've already met with Robert Saleh and also Ron Rivera, 2 minority candidates. So the Raiders could also hire, a coach as soon as Monday. And we'll find out if Tom Brady's calling the game yesterday has any sort of an impact. And I agree. If, Ben Johnson wants to go and choose money, let him, and if he suffers from that consequences, then, so be it, Maybe the Raiders will finally act differently with Tom Brady's involvement, unlike in the past where they consistently hired and fired coaches and then, GMs also simultaneously or on a completely, different timeline like the Bears have also done in the past as well. So, all we can do right now is basically sit and, patiently wait for the result. The Bears they're interviewing Eddie George, the former NFL running back, to meet that, quota. Eddie George was part of the, NFL coaching diversity candidate, and he happened to go to the Bears a couple of years ago. So there's that connection there. In case anybody's wondering, why the hell is Bears interviewing Eddie George of all people? because unfortunately, because he's African American, and because of what I just said, because of the NFL coaching diversity program that Eddie George was part of, and he happened to be with the Bears for that program there. So there's that connection for those who are wondering. For like, what the hell are the Bears doing right now? So, that decision will happen sooner rather than later. Again, if my candidates are Ben Johnson, even with yesterday's loss, doesn't change my feelings about Ben Johnson. Number 2 is Todd Monken. What he has done with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens the last 2 years is nothing short of amazement. Turning, Lamar into like a legit pocket passer is simply incredible, and I do hope that Monken can work his magic there with Caleb, who's already, I think, is a very good pocket passer that certainly can elevate the game, with a better offensive line and everything. So there's that. And then number 3 would be, I guess, Mike McCarthy by default. Phil, is that your top 3 also, or is that in no particular order for there?
Yeah. I think that's my top 3. I mean, you can get cute, and like I said, I mean, you could throw Marcus Freeman in there, but it's not realistic. I think the top 3 is definitely Ben Johnson, Todd Monken, Mike McCarthy. And I think if you hire one of those, I think that's the best head coach hire that the Bears have made since, I mean, honestly, maybe, I don't know. Nagy was thought to be a good head coach hire. But, I mean, I would feel more confident in this hire than I have in quite some time, especially if it's Ben Johnson. We never get the top head coaching candidate on the cycle. He's been talked about all season. This is totally different than any hire I've seen the Bears make in my lifetime.
Rishab, is that your top 3 candidate as well? And if the Bears, can't lock in Ben Johnson, whenever he comes for an interview, for the second interview, and then he ends up leaving the Bears, do you feel like, okay, Ben Johnson dream is gone there?
Not necessarily. I think he wants to take interviews with everybody before deciding. So I wouldn't I don't think the timing of sometimes it does matter, but in this case, I feel like he does want to take an interview with everybody. So I personally think we're going to have to wait regardless until the end of this week to see who he decides. But that's my top 3. I'd say like Ben Johnson, Monken, McCarthy. I'd throw like Pete Carroll in there, maybe 2 at the end. Just like, I feel like Pete Carroll also potentially could work. I know he's super old. Like he wouldn't be here past 4 or 5 years, but in terms of like culture building, hiring the right people, I think he would do that. Now, I know he hired Shane Waldron and, didn't work out there, but like at least under Pete Carroll, like Shane Waldron was a much better OC. And that's the type of coach he is. Like he has the ability to kind of like mold these people and keep them in check, where Eberflus couldn't really do that. Like Eberflus kind of let Shane Waldron run his own ship, and Shane Waldron's ship sunk immediately within 7 to 8 weeks, So, I think Pete Carroll could potentially work. And his personality is very similar to Caleb. They're both optimistic, energetic people. So that's another hire I could be excited about. But yeah, with the age, it's kind of difficult. And at this point, it's Ben Johnson or Todd Monken or bust for me in some ways. Like I'd be okay with Mike McCarthy too, but it just would not be as exciting, I feel like. And like a lot of the media would definitely clown us if we hire Mike McCarthy. Packers fans would be laughing, but
that's true. I mean, that's like, again, I said, that's like a low ceiling, like a high floor, low ceiling type of hiring, in my opinion. We've kind of gone through that already. John Fox 2.0 is something that I tweeted in the past. People said offensive Mike Tomlin, which is also understandable as well. I had John Vogel on Friday to discuss about the openings in the NFL, and mentioned Mike McCarthy, and he specifically mentioned that with McCarthy, it's kind of like mostly scheme driven, which does not sound encouraging, because I know a lot of head coaches in every sport, they tend to pigeonhole their players into their own system or scheme. And, that's been a massive problem, like, with the Bears as well, because, great coaches always puts talent and, make it work. It's not about their own, they put their own ego aside and make sure that the talent that they have, they will find a ways to do that. And that's one reason why I'm so encouraged with Todd Monken, because he's, in addition to Baltimore, he's won two national titles with Stetson Bennett as a quarterback there. So, that's another encouraging sign there. And he also had a head coach experience at Southern Miss, Brett Favre's school, which is not exactly known as a football factory, but he did win 9 games 1 year and took them to the bowl games, which obviously is a difficult place to do. In a place like Mississippi, where there's, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and you have SEC schools always stealing away talent from your backyard, and you don't have a lot to work with, especially, a place like Southern Miss there too. So, hopefully there will be a closure this week. And then we're going to just find out, and we're going to nitpick about the, hiring anybody outside of, Ben Johnson there. So hopefully this upcoming week, we'll finally have an answer to the long-winded search that has kind of made us all exhaustive there. All right, let's kind of end this with the playoff game outside of the Detroit-Washington game yesterday. And then we'll also look into the today's game as well. Yesterday's game between Chiefs and the Houston Texans brought some a lot of controversy about the refereeing, and then the game that seems to always favor the Chiefs there per se. Give me your opinion on yesterday's Chiefs Houston game. Rishab, let's start with you. The Chiefs, they haven't been all that impressive. They're not exactly blowing away teams, but yet somehow they're always, finding ways to win at the last second. And then, of course, as both Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were, didn't give a fuck about the refs and how they seemed to be favoring the Chiefs. Do you feel that the Chiefs were kind of because of their championship pedigree, as well as the refs being so favoritism? Do you buy that notion? Like this one. Look at this.
Yeah.
He's selling himself.
That's like a LeBron James.
He's like a mastering this, and thankfully the refs, who was literally right in front of it, did not throw a flag on this play. Plays like this.
Right.
No, it's really embarrassing, honestly, from Mahomes to do something like that. Like, he prides himself on being a tough player, and why are you doing that? Like, it's going to make defensive players respect you less. It's going to make defensive players want to, knock the shit out of you one time. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens one time. Like, I'm not saying for it to happen, but like eventually some defensive player is going to be like, oh, you're flopping and all that. Let me actually hit you, pop you super hard. Like, it'll happen one day, and it's just not a good look for the league, where they're kind of making different rules for top quarterbacks. But it's always been that way too. Like, Tom Brady also had calls go his way. Aaron Rodgers had calls go his way. So it's just like a top quarterback thing. Like, I don't think it's a Mahomes only thing. It's just like when you're the star of the NFL, face of the NFL, like, the NFL is obviously going to make more calls go your way, which sucks as a fan of other teams. But yeah, talking about the Chiefs in general, like, I don't think they're nearly as good of a team as they have been in the past. I really do expect either the Ravens or the Bills to beat them, next week. But I also don't know, man, because the Chiefs have just always found a way to win these games, and there's some black magic that goes on at the end, like a blocked field goal or like a missed extra point, or like something always happens to go in the Chiefs' favor. So I don't know, but I don't think this Chiefs team is that good.
Yeah, I know that the Chiefs, haven't blown away anybody per se, Phil, but depending on today's winner between Baltimore and Buffalo, and we'll get to that in a bit. But would you give either one of those teams who win today, a puncher's chance against the Chiefs on the road, or do you feel like the Chiefs are, because of the who they are, the last couple of years, and that do you feel like the Chiefs are still going to find a ways to win?
I think if I was a betting man, if you're asking me to put everything I own on it, I think it'd be hard for me not to bet on the Chiefs. However, I think if, I really think that this is the year that Buffalo or Baltimore puts the puts it on them and then finally ends their reign of terror. I just like to say also that's embarrassing, that crap that Patrick Mahomes has done. And, DWC was very PC by saying he's not advocating for someone to pop that man. I'm advocating for it. I'm advocating for it. Someone lay that man out. I'm so sick of this bullshit, this little soft stuff that Patrick Mahomes does. And the LeBron comparison is perfect. I mean, give me a break. You're the best player in the NFL. You're right to get the benefit of the doubt. Stop being such a bitch. I'm just begging you. Don't be a bitch, man. Don't be a bitch. That's it. But I think that this is the year this is Buffalo's year. I'm going to pound the table for that one.
Rishab, do you feel strongly about the Bills or Ravens chance against the Chiefs?
I like the Ravens a little bit more just because I feel like the run game is better, and the run game might matter a lot in a low scoring game, which it probably is going to be low scoring because the Chiefs have such a good defense. So the Ravens Chiefs game could be final score could be 21-17 or something. And in that case, I trust Derrick Henry more to win that game than I do James Cook, but Josh Allen, I feel like maybe is a better quarterback than Lamar, but I think it's pretty close. Lamar this year is having a better season. So personally, I like the Ravens a little bit more. I think they have the better chance, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills beat them too,
That's true.
Yeah.
So who are you picking? So you like the Ravens today?
I like the Ravens, yeah.
Bill?
I got Buffalo.
Okay.
What about you?
Now, okay. Go. I apologize for interrupting there. What was that?
No, I was saying, who do you pick, Ravens or Bills?
The fact that the Ravens are actually favored in this game in Buffalo is quite telling,
Yeah.
Boy, if I'm going to go Bills, I think, this is probably the Bills' good chance, and maybe this is probably their final shot at knocking off the Chiefs for a while, So I'm going to go Bills. I think that the Bills have I hope it's going to be an exciting game, just like we saw with the Washington-Detroit game. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. And, if Bills wins, for me, selfishly, that means Todd Monken will be available as soon as tomorrow for an interview as well. So this is going to be very, very interesting there. Bills time, your father said. Anthony says Ravens. Nicholas says Nose Flowers. So that's another one less weapon for Bills to.
They don't use the receivers anyways. They're strictly run game basically.
That's true. Robert was asking about today's game, the other game. Washington has a chance versus the Eagles or the Rams. Okay, let's talk about the Eagles and the Rams. The Rams have been quite a run. Their defense has been completely rebuilt after years of not having a high draft picks, if you will, and they went to Arizona, which obviously is a shorter distance travel wise, and obviously had to beat Minnesota in Arizona, obviously because of the wildfire in LA that caused them to change the venue. No problem, Phil, there. This time they're on the road against the Eagles, and it is expected to be maybe there's a snow there too, per se. Is this the Eagles game for you, Phil?
If I think that I feel like this is actually the Rams. I feel like, I'm going to take the Rams here. I really feel like that Matthew Stafford and the Rams and McVay, I feel like they're on some sort of weird magical run right now. I don't know what it is about them, but I think that the Rams beat Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. I think that Matt Stafford leads them to a comeback victory at the last second. And I feel like they've got something special going on this year. It's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think I got the Rams.
Okay. Rishab, do you feel that way, or do you feel like Eagles still have the home field advantage being on the cold weather?
No, I'm picking the Rams to go to the Super Bowl this year. I think they well, yeah, I mean, Matt Stafford, in the playoffs, quarterbacks matters a lot, and he already has a lot of playoff experience. He has a good connection with Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay is the best coach remaining in the playoffs at this point. Well, okay, not I mean obviously Andy Reid is, but like at least in the NFC side, he's the best head coach remaining. And yeah, it's just like Phil said, like they have some crazy chemistry going on this year. I think their defensive line is a reason why they could win this too, because their D line has just been destroying. Like they had 7 sacks last game or something. Like they're just
well, Sam Darnold was pretty terrible.
Yeah, they're developing guys really well, and like Jalen Hurts is the type of quarterback that sits in the pocket way too long and sometimes takes unnecessary sacks. And the Eagles have a really good O-line, but I do think the Rams have a chance to win this one. It's going to be close, but I do think the Rams win.
I'll go the Eagles because obviously at home, and then the cold weather factor there, and then the Rams have to go on the road once again. That might be a challenge there. But let me ask you guys one hypothetical question before we go. And thank you very much for almost 2,000 people joining us today on our live stream there, folks. If Rams lose, if Matthew Stafford loses. Well, actually not loses, but he decides to retire after 16 years. And Sean McVay decided, you know what? I want no part of rebuilding. And if he decides that he's available, would you give up a draft pick to get Sean McVay if he becomes available, or do you feel like the Bears just stop wasting their draft picks and just go with Ben Johnson or Todd Monken at this point? Rishab, let's start with you. Let's start with you, Rishab. Sorry.
I would give up pick number 10 in a heartbeat for Sean McVay. Like, I'm a huge Sean McVay fan. I think he's one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL. And, I'm a big Ben Johnson fan too, but Sean McVay has already proven, like, he's taken these quarterbacks to such fantastic runs. He took Jared Goff to the Super Bowl too. Like, he's done such fantastic things time and time again, even with bad rosters. Like this year, the Rams I thought would be rebuilding, but they're like on the doorsteps of going to the Super Bowl potentially, right? So, Sean McVay always finds a way to win, and he's the type of coach that could get a lot out of a poor roster, So I think pick number 10, even more, I'd be willing to give for Sean McVay. And I don't think it's entirely real or unrealistic that's possible. I think there's a tiny chance that could happen if Matt Stafford does retire, like you mentioned, because does he really want to stick through an actual rebuild? I'm not sure, because he needs some type of quarterback, right, to for Super Bowls. And Caleb Williams, I'm sure, would excite him a lot, but obviously it is far-fetched. But if it's possible, I would be willing to do that immediately.
Phil, where would you put Sean McVay over Ben Johnson and others?
He's number 1. I mean, he's easy.
Yeah. It's proven. There's no question about it. I know we had the weird rumor about Kyle Shanahan being available and all that nonsense that was quickly shot down. But but there's no question. I think Sean McVay would be at the top. Sorry about that, Phil.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I mean, there's not much to say. It's Sean McVay's just he's a Super Bowl winning head coach. I mean, he's already made 2. He's 1-1. And I mean, he's only 38 years old. It's insane. I mean, Ben Johnson's 38 too. So I think that those are points for both of them. But one of them is 38 with a 1-1 Super Bowl record already and a great record as a head coach. So as much as I love the idea of Ben Johnson, I don't have to think of the idea of Sean McVay because there's no idea. We know what it is. And so Sean McVay would be number 1.
Mm-hmm. So whoever wins the today's game, Eagles or Rams, against Washington, do you give Washington a fighter's chance, or do you feel like I know fans, the Bears fans are going to be excited because obviously the Lions are out of it, but then the Washington team that we gave them a spark because of that Fail Mary game earlier last season is something that we're going to have to live in infamy for a long time. Phil, Washington versus the Philadelphia or Los Angeles. Do you give Washington a shot?
I do give them a shot, as much as I hate to say it. And it's I think Rob asked this question first. He's a Lions fan. That's a friend of mine. So it's kind of sorry about that, but I feel like Washington has a shot. I need to stop saying they don't because I keep looking like an idiot. But I just feel like their time isn't quite here yet. I feel like whoever wins between the Eagles and Rams should beat Washington. I mean, I just don't think that they're there yet. And frankly, I'm rooting for anyone but Washington because I'm so sick of the narratives, and that's just my own selfishness speaking.
Rishab, Washington versus the winner of today's game.
Yeah, I give Washington a chance for sure because they dominated the number one team in the NFC. Like, they're actually a really good team. Like, Jaden Daniels is playing really good, as much as I hate to admit it. But coaching around him is really good too. But like Phil mentioned, if they go to the Super Bowl, that would just be disastrous for our narratives. You know, the Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels debate. Like, obviously everybody at that point would root more for Jaden Daniels and like think he's a better player, which I wouldn't fault them for that because, you know, obviously winning matters a lot in the NFL, but long term, I'm still really happy Caleb is our quarterback. So, you know, I'm rooting against them too, just for the narrative.
Right. I think it's fine, you know, to enjoy both quarterbacks, you know, equally. You know, I think, you know, Bears drafting Jalen Daniels doesn't change the fact that the Bears coaching sucked and the offensive line wasn't as good. So, you know, we'll have to kind of stop getting gaslit into a lot of the things that the media is saying. So it's unfortunate, but this is the world we live in, and this is we're going to hear about it a lot until, you know, the Bears do make a deep playoff run themselves too. So, you know, record-wise, you know, the Lions had they were the number one, but, you know, the regular season, unfortunately, they were knocked out. So, you know, we'll find out, you know, if the Lions are going to be back, you know, with different OC and defensive coordinator. You know, are the runs, is a Detroit run already over? You know, we're going to find out this offseason, you know, and just well, you know, we'll find out, you know, whoever they hire, you know, whoever it might be. So
they're going to be a pain in the ass.
Well, listen, Rishab, Phil, and, thank you very much for joining me on this Sunday. And thanks for 2,000 people plus who came in to join us on this live stream. It's awesome. And we'll do this again. Hopefully next week we'll have whenever the schedule permits. We'll talk about the Bears head coaching hire, and maybe we'll talk about other teams who ended up hiring, etc. So, you know, enjoy the game, everybody. And Rishab, thank you very much. Phil, thanks as always, and hope to have you guys on next week to talk about the Bears head coaching hire. And thank you very much for everybody who could, commented. And sorry we couldn't get all of your comments up there, but thank you, and we look forward to having you on the next edition of the Double A Team podcast live stream. Thank you very much, and everybody have a great weekend and enjoy your playoff Sunday. And we look forward to having you on our next live stream. Bye, everybody.
Take it easy. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you very much.